Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar on streamlining your processes for high quality cartography. My name is Mark Ireland. I'm what we call the FME evangelist, and I work at Safe Software. And I'm joined today by Nick. Do you want to introduce yourself, Nick?
Hi, yes, my name is Nick Burchell, so I'm the Director of Quality Assurance, and I'm also the Product Manager for Map Publisher and Geographic Imager at Avenza Systems.
Fantastic. And Hans, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm Hans van der Maarel. I'm the owner of Red Geographics, and we're a partner for both Safe Software and Avenza here in the Netherlands.
Fantastic. And we also have Elizabeth here with us. Do you want to say hi, Elizabeth?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today and helping to moderate the webinar.
Yeah, Elizabeth is who keeps us on track and makes sure we're all prepared and don't go too long and everything that's important.
I try.
So do you want to introduce everyone to Livestorm, just in case they've not used it before?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you see that help button on the bottom left, if you have any audio issues, you can click that. And there's 4 simple troubleshooting steps. We also have the react button in the bottom middle there. So share your reactions with us throughout the webinar. We love to see those. And the questions panel. So there you can ask any questions you might have during the webinar. We will have a live Q&A period at the end as well. So make sure to get your questions in. And you can also upvote other folks' questions as well. And then the chat. Keep leaving any comments you may have and let us know where you are tuning in from and what you see out your window.
Yeah.
Lastly, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go
on. And then just lastly here, if you do wish to download the slides, you can click that button on the top right of the slide decks, or you can click apps and then handouts from there where you can download the deck as well. And I'll pass it back to the agenda.
Yeah, so if you are asking questions, we'll just ask that you put it into the question panel, not the chat panel, because it's easier for us to track and keep it separate from all the comments that are going on. But yeah, thank you again for tuning in. Welcome to everyone from Sweden and Iceland, and Australia and Manchester and everywhere. So yeah, it's great to have you all here. And yeah, so what we're going to look at today is FME in relation to Avenza's map publisher and how we can get data in and out of Illustrator and maybe some other formats using FME for the purposes of cartography. And particularly Hans is going to look at how the Avenza map publisher plugin integrates with FME and Illustrator directly, and show how it automates everything as well. So yeah, so we got quite an interesting day today, I hope. So yeah, so the whole goal is to help you make beautiful maps with more precision, speed, and style than ever. I mean, really what we're trying to do is save you the time it takes moving data around and all horrible things like that, and let you loose on your imagination, getting the cartography part done, which is the fun part.
And I think at this point, it's a good point for us to turn off our webcams, and then that'll just help us save on some.
Right, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, you certainly don't need to see us all the time. So yeah, cartography is the science and art of representing geographic data. I suspect if you're here in this webinar, you know this already, so I won't belabor that definition too much. But obviously cartography is a geographic discipline, and so you're using spatial data, but spatial data, well, we all know it can be all over the place. It can have errors in. If you're getting data from someone else, you're never really sure if it's correct. You can be worried about the format as well. And so that's what we're trying to do today, is to show you how to manage that data a little better to help you get onto the cartographic part as soon as we can. So yeah, we always wondered how much of your time was actually spent mapping data. I think by this, do we mean actually moving data about? I think that's what we mean, Elizabeth. So, like, how much of your time is actually spent bringing data in and out of whatever tool you use, and how, instead of actually doing proper mapping? So, is that poll live?
Yeah, so if you click the polls tab on the bottom right there, you'll see the poll appear there. We'll give everyone a few moments.
So if you were spending 25 to 30 hours a week transferring data and messing with data, and only a little bit of time actually doing cartography, then that will be quite a worry, I think. So yeah, that wouldn't be good. So is that poll live now?
Yeah, it looks like we've got lots of votes in already.
Oh, we do? I can't even see the end. Oh, there we go. See results. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and folks, once you submit your vote as well, you can see other responses come in too.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I know everyone has different ways of working. You all have different roles in the process of cartography and GIS. So some people, I'm sure, will be out and out cartographers. Some people might be more of a support person getting data ready for the cartography team. So you're all going to have different roles, and hopefully we'll cover a lot of what you need to know, regardless of what your role is. But it looks like, yeah, 3 to 4 hours. Sorry, between 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10 hours a week is pretty much usual by the look of it for messing about with data and not actually doing cartographic work. So we'll try and reduce that number for you. So the first thing we're going to look at is Map Publisher itself. And for this, Nick's going to take over and go through these slides and talk about what Map Publisher is and and what it can do for you. So Nick, take it away.
Thanks, Mark. Hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you loud and clear.
Fantastic. So I guess I'm in control. Yes, so just a bit of an intro for me. So my name is Nick Burchell. This is a bit about my journey that led me to Avenza. So believe it or not, and I've said this to many, many people over the years, I'm a bit of a nerd that I decided I would be making maps for a living at the age of 11. So basically that is the decision time piece, right? So I basically managed to plan my entire education to get me to Oxford Brookes University to basically become a cartographer. So not to age myself, but this was the early 1990s. And then I had an interesting journey. Worked at a small company called Lovell Johns in Oxfordshire after I graduated. So they make yellow pages maps, atlases, world maps. I went to the military survey in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia in 1996 to 1998. So this was Joint Operation Graphics. Worked for a small company called Schlumberger. They basically work with British Petroleum and British Gas. And then I moved to Canada. My wife managed to get a job in Toronto and forced me to go. So so we moved in 2000. So I've been with Avenza in 2 separate stages, built out the quality assurance department between 2003, 2006, worked for a company called Geosoft between 2006 and 2016. So they're basically subsurface mapping, geologists, geophysicists, etc. And I've been back with Avenza since 2016. So I'm now responsible for quality assurance, project management, and customer services. We all wear many, many hats. So that's basically my intro. All right, still hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good, Nick.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So yeah, we're a company of around 75 people now. So some of the faces are here. So we've grown massively over the last 15 years. When I left in 2006, we were 8 people. Now we're up to 75. A lot of that growth is around the platform called Avenza Maps. So just a bit about our platform. So Map Publisher, Geographic Imager. So this is basically our extensions for Adobe products. So Geographic Imager is an extension for Photoshop. Map Publisher, which is basically our flagship product, is an extension for Adobe Illustrator, which Hans will show you a bit more shortly. So we talk to this kind of platform as as kind of the holistic kind of circular kind of product that we have a concept called a map store. So if you are using if you want to use maps that you make in Adobe Illustrator for offline use, you can actually push them to a concept of a map store. We have a mobile app called Avenza Maps, and then basically you can push these things down to your mobile application and then basically use it for work and play. So we do a lot of work with firefighters, search and rescue, a lot of work around the Avenza Maps platform. I'll be here for Q&A if you want later on. So really our Map Publisher product, we were founded in 1995. That was our flagship product. If people are old enough to understand the concept of Macromedia Freehand, we did have a freehand extension in the late 90s. We've always been compatible with Adobe Illustrator, but essentially the concept is, we are integral within the Adobe Illustrator environment. So we have more than 70 GIS mapping tools. We're seamless. We look and feel the same as Illustrator does. You install us, it just looks the same as Adobe Illustrator. So we have this concept of geospatial interoperability, which basically means that, you can bring data in, all attributes are basically preserved, all the geo-referencing for geospatial data, it's all preserved within the Adobe Illustrator environment. So, when I interview people for jobs at Avenza and they ask me, how would you describe Map Publisher? It's basically all the coolest pieces of ArcGIS directly within the Adobe Illustrator environment. So, as I mentioned, we are seamlessly integrated. So you can see that we have this toolbar across the top in Adobe Illustrator. It looks and feels the same as Adobe does, but you can do all of these things like import, import multiple data sets. You can drop grids and graticules on, scale bars. If you understand the concept of geospatial behavior within ArcGIS, you can understand that we put all of those things into Adobe Illustrator. So it's, we preserve those kinds of things. So it's a fantastic application for labeling because, we keep all those, all that metadata in the background, to do all your cartographic work. Okay, so, a bunch of different import formats. So Hans, I think we have 20 different import formats right now. So you can see we've got WFS, all of the standard GIS formats, map info, shapefiles, E00s, if anybody's still using those. But yeah, we have basically all of the leading ArcGIS formats, GIS formats that you can import directly into the Adobe Illustrator environment. So you can do things as you would do in ArcGIS. So, there's geospatial interoperability. So, you can build schemas, you can do queries. It's a fantastic application. So you can make selections. So if you can imagine that you bring a data set in, give me everything in Hans's neighborhood, you can do all those selections based on those attributes or metadata that you bring into Map Publisher via Adobe Illustrator. So we have style sheets, we call them map themes. So, you based on the attributes that are, interlaid within the data that you bring in, you can basically label, you can style sheet based on those attributes that come in with the data itself. Labeling is massive for us as well, right? Cartographic workflow. We have some high-end labeling tools. So we do conflict resolution. So if you were to label, a map of the UK, map of Australia, you're going to get some conflicts when it comes down to labeling. So we can ultimately determine what is best for you based on, the rules that you put in place. Style sheets, massive. I've already mentioned it, but you know, these are the kinds of things that you can build within a minute. And then FME to map publisher. So I guess I'll lean you into Hans. So this is the meat and the potatoes. So Hans, over to you. You can talk to the gang about how we integrate with FME Auto, and so we can bring data in directly from FME to map publisher via Illustrator. So this was it for me. Sure. Okay. Brilliant.
So in this example, I'm going to show you how we're using FME Auto in combination with Map Publisher to automate a part of our map production. The specific use case that I'll be showing is a situation where we have multiple maps that we need to make for a larger region. So every map is a small cutout of the larger region, and it's for a cycling network. So in the Netherlands, we have this cycling network system where there's basically a nationwide network, and on every node there is a information panel with a map showing you where you can go from there. And every node is numbered, which means that if you want to navigate over that network, basically all you need to do is memorize a bunch of numbers. So you know you can go from 2 to 5 to 20 to 21, and that's going to be a nice route. So that means that for every node in the network, we need to make a specific map. Now, the node numbers are not unique. So a node number might be repeated in a different part of the country. In fact, even in relatively small regions, you are likely to come across duplicate numbers. So that means we can't use the node number by itself as a unique identifier for the map. So we need to add another unique identifier to it. So that's one of the things that we do in this workspace. So we're reading the network data, we're reading a topographic base map, and for the nodes in the network, we pick their location, and we use a 2D box replacer to create a 5 by 5 kilometer box centered on the location of the node. And then in the attribute creator, we're going to make our unique map name. So I'm just going to run 5 maps rather than the whole lot of 40 something. So running that through a clipper, which we use to clip out all of our source data. Since we use 2 layers to show the roads, we need to double them up. So we're duplicating them right here and adding new layer names to them. So we do the clipping. Then another thing that we want to automate is the order of the layers that we get within my publisher. So to avoid having to do it manually, we use a attribute value mapper to assign a sort order attribute based on the layer name. And then a sorter to sort out all of our features based on that sort order. Then a feature type filter, so we can split out everything to the correct layer. And there's one little trick that we need to do with the spot elevation values to make sure that my publisher actually recognizes them in the correct way. Now the writer that we're using is the map publisher writer within FME. That's the extra cost plugin. And I've specified a couple of things here. So specifically, I tell it to use a template file. And the template file is an Illustrator file which has a couple of map themes to take care of the styling. It has some labeling settings. It has an artwork already. So the size of the map, the physical size of the physical map is already specified in there. So we tell it to use that template. We tell it to create a new map view and fit the data to the page. And make sure it's set to 1 to 10,000 scale. And then if we check in Illustrator, in our template file, you can see I've specified a number of map themes, and for every map theme, I've specified the auto assign options. So this means that any layer which name starts with terrain gets automatically assigned to my terrain style sheet. and that is then being used to style the terrain. So you can see I've got a selection rule here, and then visual properties. So if the type of land use is sand, then I'm going to assign this yellowish color to it. And we've basically repeated that for all of these map themes. There's a bunch of them that we don't actually show. So for example, the place polygons, they're the larger built-up areas. I don't actually show them on the map, but I use them to label them. So the style that I apply has no stroke, no fill. Then in my publisher's automation settings, I've specified that the style sheet should be applied automatically, and that labeling settings, which I've created previously, should also be assigned. Now I'm going to close this, and I'm going to kick off FME. Which is going to run, and it's going to take a couple of seconds. Then if I go to the folder that we've set aside for our maps, you can see it's already been filled up with a couple of FFS files. That's FME's internal storage format. And then you'll see the AI files, the Illustrator files, appearing as Illustrator gets around to doing them. And as you can see, it takes a couple of seconds per map. And that's it. So if I open one of them, you can see it's a styled map. It's looking good. You can see that all of the text has been placed nicely. So for example, this is one of those place labels that I don't actually show the place itself. I just use it to place the labels. You can see that the layers are all nicely correct in the proper order. And since it's already been saved as an AI file, I don't actually need to do anything manually to this. If I want to, I still have all of the opportunities that Illustrator gives me. So if I want to change some of the text placement, I can totally do that. But I don't have to. And so depending on how complete you make your map themes and how far you're willing to go with FME, you can actually get to the point where there really is no need to do anything manually to this map anymore. As you can see, it took a couple of seconds. On larger, more complex maps it takes a little bit more time, but I didn't have to do anything manually to it. So this is really great. It saves all of the tedious work. It reduces the chance of mistakes, and it's really worth it if you set it up this way.
That was really cool. Thanks, thanks Hans, for showing that. So what we'll do is I think we'll there we go. We're going to say out in the chat as well about where do you get your data from, and how do you get your data into Illustrator? If you're not using Avenza products already, how do you get your data into Illustrator or into whatever application you're doing your cartography in? So yeah, just chat that out in the chat, and let us know if there's anything interesting that you'd like to mention about your current process. Any questions so far? Yeah, no questions yet, but if anything comes up at any time, just post it into the question channel, and we can answer there. So what we're going to do while you're just maybe typing away there is I'll just mention we're going to go into FME next, because I know not everyone might be familiar with FME fully. So we'll just do a bit of background about that, and I'll show what we can do in general for cartography, and then we'll talk a bit more about the Avenza plugin and so on. So yeah, so let's just have a look at the cartographic capabilities of FME by itself. And we'll mention that FME is made by Safe Software. We've got 28 years, it says, of solving data challenges. Yeah, I think FME first came out in, let me think, 96. Safe Software was a couple of years older, maybe 1994. So yeah, we've been around quite a while. We're used in a lot of organizations around the world, and our use is growing quite considerably. We have, well, it says 16,000 users active in the community. I wouldn't necessarily say active, that many is active, but we do have way more than that members in our community for sure. And we are what you call an enterprise integration platform. So we have FME Desktop, which is what Hans was just demonstrating. But we also have FME Server, which is a way to automate your processes online and in the enterprise level, I guess. FME Cloud is the same thing as FME Server, except we host it for you instead of you hosting it yourself. So that's a very worthwhile thing. If you like to pay as you go, you can use FME Cloud to do that. And then we have a couple of mobile apps as well. I think the most notable one about that, neither of them are really cartographic, but the most notable one is the Augmented Reality app we have that lets you view your spatial data in the world around you. And it's really quite amazing what we can do with that. And we support lots and lots of different data formats. I'm not sure. I think it says something like 500 formats now, and that wouldn't surprise me. It really is, like, I sometimes can't believe how many formats there are out there. But we started off in GIS, went through CAD, tabular. Well, you can see the chart there. The big thing I think right now is indoor mapping. But the important thing for cartography is that any products like this, any formats, any data systems, we can bring them into FME, and from FME you can pass them on into wherever you want it to go. Hopefully, for the purposes of today, it goes through the Avenza plugin and into Illustrator. But wherever you're putting your data, do cartographic work or create your maps, hopefully we can read that data. Yeah, I'm seeing people saying, well, you got your data in ArcSDE and you create some maps in ArcMap, and you use automation between those systems. And I suspect a lot of people do that. I mean, what we said here in the title was high quality cartography, but I mean, that doesn't really, I think we said that because Illustrator really is sort of, for me, it's sort of the gold standard for, because you can make all your little changes manually, but all the other products out there, especially the Esri ones, are great for creating maps and QGIS as well, as somebody's mentioned. So we're not biased. We're very neutral at SAFE. But wherever you make your maps, wherever you get your data and put it, I'm sure we can help. So let's just have a quick look at how we can help. I got an example of making a map, and this was the source data. And regardless of the format, we can read that data and we can put it out to any other format that we like. So let me just share my screen for a second, because I've got FME open. So hopefully you can see my screen now. And right now I've got this FME open with this generate workspace option. I'm reading from a data set. It happens to be shapefile, but it doesn't have to be. Like I said, we support something like 500 different formats. So wherever your data is, we can get at it. I think in the example Hans showed, it was using a special Dutch format as well that I can't remember the name of right now, but I did notice that. So yeah, there's lots of different formats that we support reading from. And then we can write it to any number of formats as well. If you've never used FME, you might be quite amazed at how many different formats there are and how many national standards there are, like Swedish, Swiss, there was a Dutch ones, UK, all sorts of things. Minecraft, we can even write to that. I mean, not all of these are cartographic, obviously, but a lot of them are related to that. Like we have a whole bunch of Esri formats that we can write to, like geodatabases and ArcGIS Online, ERDAS Imagine, ER Mapper, and of course, we have support for various Adobe formats, PDF, 2D, and 3D. The 3D one is quite special to me. If you've not tried that before, that's a really cool way of looking at your data and sharing it. And of course, Illustrator, either plain or with the Avenza publisher. So I can say, let's convert that to Illustrator using the plain writer, click OK, and my data is coming from Shape. And really, that's all there is to it. I can run that, and there we go. So I would have my data in, it will be in EPS format, is it, which I can import into Adobe. So, I mean, you don't necessarily need a plugin, but that's obviously, we can do without it. But the problem is, the results, if you do this directly, aren't necessarily great. So, for example, this data, if I read it and write it out into Illustrator, it's got too many vertices. It's got aggregate objects. Like you can see, this is what this data would look like if I just reproject. I've reprojected it as well in this screenshot, and just opened it up in Illustrator, and it's like, well, where's Antarctica? Where's Russia? Where's Greenland gone? Well, I think they've got too many vertices in them, and that's one of the problems. So sending things straight to Illustrator doesn't necessarily work. But then we can solve a lot of these problems because we've got transformers. And so let me show you again my screen. And I have the workspace that I use to make that map. And it looks like this. So let me just show you the full extent. And I mean, it might look a little bit complicated, but it really isn't once we start to look at this. All I'm doing again is reading this data from a shapefile. And what I'm doing is just giving it a color. So let me just run it up to this point so you can see what's going on in here. And what I'm doing is I'm giving the data a color, first of all, and that will give it the color in Illustrator. Then we've got the reprojector transformer, which reprojects the data into, in this case, what am I converting to? I think it's a polyconic coordinate system. And then I deaggregate things. Deaggregate means, well, everything's sort of connected to the same country. Like if I click on Russia, all of these islands that are part of Russia get highlighted as well. The same thing with the Canada and the US. If I can find Canada, there we go. All of the islands are connected. So what the deaggregator does is just split that up into individual features, which can just make it a little bit easier to deal with. And of course, you get fewer vertices per feature that way, which makes it easier to handle. Then I just filter out some of the bigger polygons and generalize them. So here I'm generalizing the Russian coastline just to give it a fewer vertices. I'm just using a Douglas algorithm and a tolerance of 400. There's other algorithms in there that we can use, but I'm just thinning it down to get fewer enough vertices in there that we can actually put it into Illustrator and actually make use of it. So there's things like that we can do. Also, what I do in here is I create a grid. So I create a grid that covers the world like so, and then I reproject it in the same way, which gives me that. And I can send that out to Illustrator as well. And if we look at that and look at this at the same time, where are we? There we go. You can see all of that data starting to come together now. And we can do things like sort them into order and mess about with the lines and clean things up in general. So FME really is the preparation tool. It's about reading your data in whatever format it's in, processing that data however you want, cleaning it up, getting it into the right space, putting it out into layers and so on. And right now I was just using the basic Illustrator writer, but as you saw, we could use any sort of writer there, like whether it be an Esri one or any other product, or you might want to write it out and use it in QGIS. That's fine as well. We can write it out to whatever format you need. And of course, there is the plugin that Hans showed earlier that lets you write it to Illustrator via the Avenza plugin, and that sort of automates the process a bit better because you get better results out of FME, and you can style it directly in Illustrator. So let me go back to slides. So yeah, so once I've got this result out, this is what it looks like pretty much. And it's not perfect, but you can see, hopefully in Illustrator, we've got a few more layers now. Not everything's all squished on the same layer. And it's got a bit of color to it, which makes it easier to deal with. And yeah, so once it's in Illustrator, I can start messing about with it and changing the color and doing things like that, and fixing it up and getting it how I really want it to look, which is great. And that worked for this project, but this was just for a single map. It wasn't really for a bulk project, the sort of things that Hans was doing and showing earlier. We can restructure the data, but we can clean the data, we can write the data, we can get the data wherever you like. But if you want to get it into Illustrator, then the plugin helps because you can automate it and do it for lots of maps. As you saw Hans do earlier, he created multiple AI files. And that was the other thing I noticed. The writer wrote directly to Illustrator AI format. It didn't write to the intermediate, the EPS thing like I did. So that's another reason that you might want to consider that plugin. So yeah, so that's where Map Publisher would come into this. At this point, if I was doing these in bulk products and automating things, I would do that. So what I think we should do is we're going to go back to Hans now, just to talk a little bit about his company, Red Geographics. And I think we did his demo in a bit of the wrong order, but that's okay. We can talk about Hans's work and what he does, and yeah, so if you want to, over to you, Hans, and we can chat about your work at Red Geographics.
All right, thank you. So introduction at the end.
Yeah,
always nice to mix things up.
Yeah.
So Red Geographics is the Dutch reseller for Avenza and for Safe Software. I've personally been working with both of them for a long time. I think the very first interaction I've had with Safe was apparently an email between me and Dale in December 1997. And I've been working with Avenza roughly the same time. So my first experience working with Avenza was beta testing. I think it was my publisher 3.0. So this was way back when I was an intern in college still. So currently we're a team of 3 people. I'm the owner of Red Geographics, and I have Veerle and Inge working with me. And we've got a very strong background in both cartography and GIS. And so that means that we often find ourselves working on projects which are on the border between those 2 fields. And it's an interesting place to be in. I don't seem to have control over the presentation for some reason, so I can't move it forward.
Okay, I can move it forward. There
okay.
We go.
And so often the kind of problems that we run into is that we have to make a lot of maps in a relatively short amount of time. And that's really great, actually, because we love making maps. It's just that a lot of the times, if you make those maps, it can get really time-consuming and tedious. If you have to import like 20 layers and make sure that they're in the right order, and you have to do that for like 50 maps, it's going to get really boring. And the point where it gets really boring is the point where you start making mistakes. So we want to try and make sure that we automate this process as much as we can, but we don't want to sacrifice quality. We still want to be able to supply our clients with a great map. And so here's an example that we've done earlier this year, and actually using a process similar to what I've just demoed. So this is one of, I believe these were 15 map panels throughout southern Luxembourg with a hiking route network. And so it's a topographical base map, and there's some additional information right on top of it. All of the maps were the same kind of content, just slightly different regions. Was great to work on, and we managed to automate quite a bit of this with the FME Auto plugin. And another example is the next slide. This is one of 24 maps showing which parts of a certain municipality will flood if the water rises to a certain level. And this is actually mostly done with FME, so all of the analysis, so indicating which areas flood with which water level, that was all done in FME. And then writing it out again through FME Auto to produce the maps in my publisher with aerial photos underneath and like a standardized map legend and a scale bar in the north arrow, an indicator map. And again, trying to automate as much of this process as we possibly could.
That's really cool. So can I just ask a couple of quick questions then, Hans, since we got you here? How do you define the map sheets? Is that something you do in FME, or is that done in Illustrator?
It's a mixture of both, actually. So the first example that I showed, the hiking route networks, I mean, they're all centered on the locations of the panels, and they're all the same size.
Okay.
So that's automatically being done. The other one, the flooding maps, because the maps are quite large, these are large sheets of paper, and the aerial photo is quite heavy. We got their ECW file, and it was like 45 gigabytes for the entire municipality. So obviously, we want to make sure that we don't process too much data. And so what I've done is I've manually determined the placement of the map sheets using Illustrator, so that we could get the most efficient use out of it. Basically, if we could produce one map less, it would actually save us quite a bit of time.
Oh, I can imagine.
And so that's why they're not all north up. They're all the same size, but they're all rotated to cover as much of the area affected as possible with the least number of maps.
Cool.
I don't think that could really be automated, to be honest. Probably not as fast as I could do it manually.
Yeah, that would be difficult. I mean, I'm sure there must be a way of dividing space up. I mean, in FME, we can tile an area easily enough, but it's tiling it to minimize the space taking up is it's one of those tasks that's more of a machine learning thing than anything else. And yeah, once you've got your experience, I suspect you could do it way easier.
Yeah.
So we were going to do a demo, but actually we already showed the demo. So is there anything else you can think of to chat about, Hans, or that you think we could show in?
I think one big benefit of using this approach, or using FME Auto with Adobe Illustrator, is if you're doing print cartography, because FME at the moment can only do RGB colors, and if you want to try and print those, you may or may not actually get the colors that you wanted.
Yeah.
Whereas if you use Illustrator, you can specify CMYK colors. Sometimes we have to use specific Pantone colors that our clients come up with. And so in terms of color management, it's a lot more robust than FME.
Okay. That sounds good. Sorry, I was just looking at the questions as well. But yes, I mean, I realize that, and this is the thing, FME really isn't a cartographic production software. It's data integration. So we really do help you move your data around, read it from wherever, write it to wherever. But when it comes down to it, you want to create your maps in another system, and because that's where your production is better. So we skip over that demo part. And it says not everything can be automated. So I guess that's true. So how much time do you think you spend once you've got your data in Illustrator, like tidying things up? Yeah.
It really depends. I think text placement is the big time sink still. Even if we use Label Pro to automate the text placement as much as possible, there are still situations where I think as a human cartographer, I can do a better job than the automated process. It's just that, especially on a complex map, text placement is never really done. So there has to be a point where you say, okay, this is where I say this is enough.
Yeah.
I think it was Douglas Adams who once wrote that good books don't get published, they escape. And I want to say that that's probably the case for maps as well.
I think you're probably right. Yes, that's very interesting. Yeah. So yes, I mean that's what we're really all about, is automating as much as we can with FME, and and I think we do have some functionality within FME for moving things around and offsetting them so they don't overlap, and creating labels and that sort of thing. But again, if you need to tidy them up, then
the map text labeler plugin that's available for FME is actually based on the same technology as the Label Pro plugin that's in Map Publisher.
Oh, okay. Oh, fantastic. So, so we can do things with FME like that, but mostly we're moving things about. I noticed that Dale has joined us. Dale, our co-founder. Did you you wanted to say hi, Dale?
The disembodied voice of Dale is here. Yes.
Excellent.
So, no, I just wanted to chime in.
Hey, Dale.
Hello.
Hello.
I took a look because I should have done this earlier, but I can confirm that in February of 1996, SAFE was already partnering with Avenza, and I was trying to find a picture of the map that was produced at the time, but it was a poster given out at the JS conference in 1996. FME was used to bring data in, and Map Publisher made it look beautiful. And so I just wanted to say that this partnership has been underway for longer than probably most of the people in the audience have been alive. So anyway,
many moons
working with you.
Yeah, I think Hans has been using FME for longer than I have. That's for sure, because I started around 2003, I think. So
I was talking to one of the SAFers at the user conference a few months ago, and when I said I started using FME in 1997, he said that he was born.
Oh, I don't want to know that. I think I'm not Nick on that score. I think I'm of his era. So it does frighten me how young some of the people are at SAFE. Younger than.
Thanks, Mark. I'm from the same era.
Yes. Well, I think we are, and not that I want to sit here reminisce, but I think we have a very similar path in survey as well. So it's like, wow. Yeah. So it's just funny, but yes, we got a couple of people working at SAFE now, and I'm like, am I old enough to be your father or your grandfather? I can't quite figure that out. So okay, best not to think about that. But, okay, so let's. We did the demo. The whole point of this today was to say to you, hey, don't keep the value of your data wasted by keeping it stuck. If you want to create maps, FME is here to help you move your data in and out, whatever formats you want, to help you clean it up, to help maintain it. And there are some great products out there that when you do want to start creating maps, FME can push the data to, and we have plugins for. In this case today, we were looking at the Avenza plugin and Illustrator, but yeah, lots of other formats we can do as well. But that really did look impressive, what I saw with Illustrator, and that ability to set up all those style sheets in advance. So you just bring your data in, and it's like 99% done by the look of it. And so that was fantastic.
I'll just chime in to say, Mark, that it is a little bit more sophisticated than it was in 1996. It's come.
I suspect it was, yes.
It's come a long way. Very, very impressive.
FME as well. I think we probably didn't even have an interface in that at that point. So
Nope.
We were just text-based, which scripting based. So we've gone from being all code to pretty much no code, I would say. So yeah, so if you're interested in this and you want to learn more, then please do reach out to us anywhere that we are available. We'd love to chat with you about data and how we can help you move it about and reconstruct it and clean it and whatever. There's info@safe.com, but you can also find us on the FME community, which is community.safe.com. And like we said earlier, we've got thousands of people who are members, who are sitting there. Well, I wouldn't say sitting waiting for your questions, but they do scan the forums and they will help answer your questions if you've got anything specific. And our staff are on there as well and will help answer questions. So please do reach out, whatever channel you prefer, and we will help you get done what you need to get done. And you can also download FME as a trial if you don't have it already. It's free to download and try it out. I think it's a 30-day trial, but you can upgrade it to longer than that as well. We're always happy to again help you out to get what you need when you need it. And there is a free trial of Avenza as well. How would they get that, Nick? Just look at the Avenza website, I guess.
Yeah, Mark, just go to avenza.com. There's a free trial button. So yeah, again, it's the same with you guys at Safe. We do a 2-week trial, but yeah, we can extend for however long you guys need it.
Fantastic. And so yeah, so once you've downloaded them, given them a try, apply it to your own data and see what you can get out of it. And then yeah, we'd love to see some examples as well of what you can create. So somebody mentioned in the comments, been using FME since 2006, map publisher for Illustrator since 2011, but hadn't combined the two until 2 to 3 years ago, and it's an amazing combo, and I think it really is. For resources, yeah, again, the FME community is perfect. There's a webinar next week, From Data to Maps to Docs, Turn Days into Minutes with Automated Integration. There's a webinar coming up on Mapnik and the Mapnik rasterizer, if you're into that side of things. I don't know if that's the webinar, but you can check it out, and I'm sure you can.
Yes, indeed.
Sorry?
It is.
It is the one. Excellent.
It is the one, and I actually saw something super cool last night showing the maps ending up inside of Trello cards. So if you want to see how you can go from data to maps to Trello, that'll be the kind of crowning demo.
Interesting. I like that. So yes, so if you are a member of our FME community, you can go to fme.ly/webinar badge and type in that code, and you will get yourself a fancy little badge on the community. And I don't know what the record is now, but I know there's like people with 40 or 50 badges for watching webinars. So
Wow.
you got a lot of catching up to do, but you can do it, yes. So and we have a leaderboard of badges as well, which is how we know that. But yeah, check out what's coming up and in webinars, and also what we've done before. I mean, I know the one we did last week was about using FME Server and apps and creating apps online with Server. We've had many other webinars about all sorts of data integration, whether it's formats or particular field like CAD or GIS. So go and look at safe.com/webinars, and there'll be something there for you to find interesting. And if you really are brand new to FME, we have a fantastic training course. It's a free, well, I think all of our training is free, to be honest, but it's a free 90-minute workshop called the FME Accelerator. You can learn how to really just sort of kick off your FME skills and do as much as you want with as little effort as possible. So if you're new to FME, or even if you've not used it in a while, or you've never really taken training and you really want to get going in a hurry, then that's the course to do. And we even have a book. We got lots of things coming out here, I guess. So the Spatial Data for the Enterprise for Dummies, and I think that's really cool. For me, I looked at it and thought, okay, well, I mean, it's not technical information, but it's great sort of basic information that I can use to sort of plan out things I want to do, to give me ideas, to go to my boss and say, hey, look, did you know that data integration can do that? We should be doing that. So that's the sort of thing I think it'd be great for. So give that a read and save the date for a conference next year. I noticed we got many, many people from Europe in the webinar today, and please keep that date in mind. And we're having an FME conference next year in September, which I'm sure Hans will be at. I'm almost certain.
Yep, I'll be there.
Excellent. Well, hopefully I will too, but I don't know. We'll see. So questions. We do a Q&A. So let's see what questions we got. Is the Avenza plugin purchased through Avenza or Safe? It looks like Avenza. You could talk to our sales team as well. I'm sure we could point you in the right direction if you've got a.
And you can go to Hans as well if you're in Europe.
Yeah. So, and their trial, as we mentioned, is 14 days for the basics. The FME script for this demo will be available for you. Yes, I will make my workspace available to you. That just writes out to plain Illustrator. It doesn't use the Avenza plugin, but maybe I can create one, or Hans can give me a workspace that he can share with us that does use that plugin, and then you can see the difference. Mm-hmm. And if not, I can put one together, I'm sure.
I can certainly share the workspace and the data and the template that I've used for.
Fantastic.
For my demo.
That's superb. Thanks, Hans. Yeah. So keep an eye after the webinar. We normally send an email out to everyone to follow up, and there'll be a link in there for sure. Question: does Map Publisher, is it able to integrate CAD drawings into raster images to generate maps? Yes, I think that's the case.
So we import MicroStation DGN and AutoCAD DXF and DWG directly into Illustrator as vectors.
Fantastic. Can we in FME? I was going to say, does the Avenza writer in FME, does that support raster, or is that vector only?
Hans, can you help?
Be honest, I've never really tried that.
Well, there we go. This is
not with large images, because basically what happens is that the writer pushes everything through to Illustrator, and we've noticed that if you process a lot of maps in one short session, Illustrator kind of loses track. So on larger numbers of maps, we actually don't use a single workspace. We use one which we run through a workspace runner to sort of meter it out a little bit. And quite often, if we have large background images like hill shades or aerial photos, we do use FME to clip them, but then we import them manually into Map Publisher. Like one of the final steps.
That's what I was thinking, because FME can process raster and do a lot to that raster data and then write it out to a format. And I think bringing raster data into Illustrator is way easier than bringing in vector. So you have more control in there. So that's probably the way for that. Excuse me. Are ArcGIS Portal web maps considered cartography? I would say so. I don't think we have the ability to configure that. I'm not sure. I mean, I know we can send data to ArcGIS Portal, and to ArcGIS Online. I don't know that we can style that data before we do that. I think that styling would happen in that product, but anyone who knows, please comment and let me know if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, it's just vector import only from Arc Online.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Three-dimensional linear data. What do we recommend for visualization and symbolization? I'm not sure about that. Do you have any ideas, folks? Visualization, symbolization.
So this is subsurface, presumably, right?
I guess. I mean, if we're doing two-dimensional topographic maps, then I don't know that it makes a lot of.
Illustrator's basically 2D only.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, as I mentioned earlier, Adobe PDF does have a 3D format, and I'm very impressed with how that works. And FME does write it pretty easily. So, I mean, you could try that, and that is easy to share. But I mean, there's lots of tools out there now, and lots of formats that would do 3D visualization. I'm trying to think of them offhand, and I can't think of the format I'm thinking of right now. But yeah, if you browse through the formats list in FME, you'll find a whole bunch of different formats in there that are tied to 3D visualization platforms. So that would work. Yeah. Oops, I've lost where we are.
Recognizing we are a few minutes over time, for those of you, yeah, just so for those of you who can't stick around a couple minutes longer, we do have a couple more questions here that we'll go through, but a big thank you to all of you for joining us here this morning. A few different resources here, info@redgeographics.com to reach out to Hans and his team there. And a huge thank you to our presenters as well this morning.
Yeah, thank you to everyone for being here, for Nick and to Hans and to Vil back in the Netherlands for helping set this up. It's been an absolute blast to work with you on this webinar, and I love being able to show what you can do, what you're capable of with FME and that and the plugins. So yeah. So thank you, everyone. I'll say goodbye, but if you want to stay, I'm sure we can still chat and finish answering the questions off. But otherwise, thank you for attending this webinar. Okay, so there's a question further down. Is there a case study auto-generating where the trigger's coming from a ticketing system? Yeah, I mean, server can do, FME server is definitely capable of triggering processes and listening for data to come in and taking action. But as Hans says, Illustrator is not really a server-ready approach. I mean, if you were doing something like that, then maybe, yes, you would want to use something a bit simpler, like the Mapnik rasterizer transformer in FME, because I could see very easily how you could do that. You could you just run your workspace on demand on a trigger, and it produces a map like that. And obviously, it's not going to be quite the same quality that you'll get by publishing it to Illustrator like that, but it would be a way of doing that.
And this is actually something that we see a lot with our municipal FME server clients. So they've got, like, probably they have a handful of FME users, but they have got a larger pool of colleagues who every now and then just want to make a very quick map of a certain part of the municipality, and they don't want to bother the FME users for that. So they set up an FME server workflow where they can just basically draw a box on a map. And then they get a PDF or a JPEG with a styled map of that part that they've selected. Yeah. And again, it's you don't get the options that Illustrator gives you. But if you set it up properly, if your data is correct and good and everything, I'm pretty certain you can still get a very nice result out of that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. And I think we've got one final question there was, how do you utilize OSM WMS raster tiles as a background in map production? I don't know that we can read those raster tiles directly from FME. Is there a tile source for OSM, sorry, that you know of?
Yeah, so in our recent release 11.0, we've added OSM and PBF vector format on the importer.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you guys can write to OSM PBF, but we can read automatically in Map Publisher.
Yeah, we can read and write the vector data for sure. I think
okay.
The user was just asking more about the raster tiles, which I don't know how that's done. I don't know if there's like a source of tile somewhere online. If there is, I mean, we could read it directly with FME because FME can read from a web address. But yeah,
we're vector only for import.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But it's funny. One of the things I was thinking of doing for the MapNIC rasterizer was to create a workspace that generated OSM looking maps, like using that directly in FME. But I think that would be I looked at it and it's way too difficult. And that occurs to me that that's the sort of thing that you could set up a sheet, a style sheet for in Illustrator, and just bring your OSM data.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
So that would, if you're using vector, if you wanted to get that in as a background in a map production, you could, I suspect, just read the vector and style it with a style sheet instead of reading rasterize data to start with. So that might be another way of approaching that.
Yep.
So yeah. Well, I think that's everything for today. Yeah. Thanks everyone who's still here. If you need to get in touch with us, you've got info@Red Geographics if you'd like to talk to Hans. And I know Hans is on Twitter and also on very strong in our community as well. And Nick, I think it was nick@avenza.com, is that right?
Yeah, nick@avenza.com. You can get me on QA Nick as well. That's my Twitter handle.
Fantastic. And yeah, I'm the FME Evangelist. You can find me on Twitter, FME Evangelist, or mark.ireland@safe.com, or on LinkedIn, that sort of thing as well. So yeah, please don't hesitate to get in touch if we can help you with anything. But other than that, thanks to Hans and Nick again for being here. It's been great to have you along this morning.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you. And we'll with that, we'll all mute our microphones and say goodbye to everyone. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.